Now, if you're a fan of the GTA series, you might be wondering why we got Liberty City stories and Vice City stories, but San Andreas never got the same treatment. Let's break it down. Liberty City stories and Vice City stories were both released for the PlayStation Portable, giving players a chance to revisit these iconic cities in a portable format. They were huge hits, expanding on the stories of characters we already knew and loved. So, it seemed like a no-brainer that San Andreas would be next in line, right? Well, not quite. The thing is, San Andreas was already a massive game. We're talking about a title that spanned 3 cities and had enough content to keep players busy for months. Trying to compress all that into a PSP game would have been like trying to fit an elephant into a Mini Cooper. It just wasn't going to happen without losing something in the process. Plus, by the time they might have gotten around to making San Andreas stories, the gaming landscape was changing. The PSP was on its way out, and new consoles were taking center stage. Rockstar was probably more focused on pushing forward with Grand Theft Auto 4 and eventually Grand Theft Auto 5, rather than looking back. And let's be real, San Andreas had already told such a complete and epic story. CJ's journey from Grove Street to the top of the criminal underworld was pretty comprehensive. It's hard to imagine what a stories version could have added without feeling forced or unnecessary. But we still can at least craft an idea about it. Our protagonist? Let's call him Marcus, CJ's older cousin. He's a young Grove Street member, full of ambition and loyalty to his hood. The game kicks off with Grove Street at its peak. They're running the streets, got respect, and even have a good relationship with the cops. Sweet's leading the gang, and everything seems golden. But trouble's brewing. We start seeing the ballas making moves, pushing new product on the streets. It's stronger, cheaper, and it's causing chaos. Marcus gets caught up in the middle of this, trying to push back against the rising tide. As the story progresses, we'd see familiar faces pop up. A younger Sweet, struggling to hold the gang together. Ryder as a kid, already showing signs of his future betrayal. And of course, a brief appearance from CJ before he leaves for Liberty City. The gameplay would mix the classic GTA formula with some new elements. Maybe we'd get to manage gang territories in more depth, or have a system where our decisions directly impact Grove Street's influence. We'd explore how corrupt cops like Tenpenny and Pulaski first got their hooks into the neighborhood. There could be missions where Marcus unknowingly helps them, thinking he's doing what's best for Grove Street. As the story nears its climax, things start falling apart. The crack epidemic hits hard, tearing families apart. Grove Street members start flipping to the ballas, or just leaving the life altogether. Marcus would be fighting a losing battle, trying to hold on to what's left of his family and his hood. The game could end with a bitter victory. Marcus manages to keep Grove Street from being completely wiped out, but at a huge cost. Maybe he ends up in prison or has to leave Los Santos, explaining why we never hear about him in San Andreas. The final scene could be a young CJ boarding a bus to Liberty City, with Marcus watching from the shadows, knowing he's failed to protect the next generation from the life he tried to escape. This kind of prequel could have added so much depth to the world of San Andreas, showing us how things got so bad by the time CJ returns. But you know what would be cooler? A ballas protagonist for San Andreas stories would have been a game changer, offering a fresh perspective that could have reshaped how we view the entire GTA San Andreas universe. Let's dive deep into this alternative concept and explore why it would have been even cooler. Imagine stepping into the shoes of a young ballas member. Let's call him Andreas. The game opens in the mid-1980s, with Andreas as a teenager living in Ganton, which at this point is still Grove Street territory. He's friends with Sweet, CJ, and the other Grove Street kids. But he's an outsider, never fully accepted because his older brother is one of the few ballas in the area. As the story progresses, we'd see Andreas torn between his childhood friendships and his family ties. This internal conflict would be the emotional core of the game, adding layers of complexity to the Ballas Grove Street rivalry we've always seen as black and white. The rise of the Ballas would be intricately tied to the crack cocaine epidemic hitting Los Santos. We'd see how this new drug transforms the neighborhood, creating opportunities for the ambitious and desperate alike. Andreas, initially reluctant, gets pulled into the trade by his brother. This could introduce a compelling gameplay mechanic where you're building a drug empire from the ground up, similar to the systems in GTA, Vice City stories, but more expansive and consequential. As the ballas gained power, we'd witness the transformation of Ganton and the surrounding areas. The game could feature a dynamic environment where your actions visibly change the neighborhood. Grove Street tags get replaced by purple, well-kept homes become crack dens, and the once friendly streets turn hostile. This is where Kane could come into play as a major character. Kane, barely mentioned in San Andreas, could be introduced as a charismatic, ruthless leader who sees potential in Darius. Under Kane's mentorship, Darius rises through the ranks of the ballas, learning the ins and outs of gang warfare and drug trafficking. The game could explore Kane's background, showing how he built the ballas from a small-time gang into a criminal empire. We could see his strategic mind at work, forming alliances with corrupt cops like Tenpenny and Pulaski, long before the events of San Andreas. This would add depth to these characters and explain how they became so entrenched in Los Santos's criminal underworld. As Darius becomes more involved with the ballas, we'd see his relationships with his old Grove Street friends deteriorate. Missions could involve direct confrontations with Sweet, Ryder, and other familiar faces, but from the opposite side of the conflict. This would create powerful, emotional moments as Darius is forced to go against people he once considered family. The game could also delve into the origins of Grove Street's downfall. We might see how the influx of drugs and the aggressive expansion of the ballas lead to internal conflicts within Grove Street. Perhaps Darius even plays a role in sowing discord among the families, exploiting weaknesses and turning members against each other. As the story reaches its climax, we could see the events that lead directly into the beginning of San Andreas. The game might end with Darius, now a high-ranking ballas member, orchestrating the drive-by shooting that kills CJ's mother, a pivotal moment that sets the stage for CJ's return and the events of the original game. This approach would offer a nuanced look at gang culture, showing how circumstances and choices can lead someone down a dark path. It would challenge players' perceptions, making them empathize with characters they once saw as enemies. Gameplay-wise, it could introduce new mechanics centered around gang management, drug trade, and territory control. Imagine planning and executing territory takeovers, managing your drug supply chain, and navigating the complex politics of gang alliances. Moreover, this perspective would allow for a deeper exploration of ballas culture. We could learn about their history, their codes, and what drives them beyond just being the bad guys to Grove Street. This could include unique ballas-specific activities, customs, and even a look into their interpretation of events we thought we knew from San Andreas. By focusing on the ballas, the game could also expand the map to include more of their traditional territories, giving us a new look at areas of Los Santos we didn't explore as deeply in the original game. In the end, a San Andreas stories with a ballas protagonist wouldn't just be a prequel. It would be a complete recontextualization of the San Andreas story. It would challenge everything we thought we knew about the Grove Street ballas conflict, turning a simple turf war into a complex, morally gray struggle for survival and power in the unforgiving streets of Los Santos. It's a shame that this game would have made a lot of money for Rockstar, considering how money-hungry they are, but at least they back it up. A San Andreas Stories game, especially one focused on the ballas' rise, would have likely blown Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories out of the water. San Andreas as a setting is just on another level. Liberty City and Vice City are iconic, sure, but San Andreas is a whole different beast. It's not just a city, it's a whole state with diverse environments. From the gritty streets of Los Santos to the rural backwaters of Flint County and the glitz of Las Venturas, there's so much more to explore. This variety gives developers a huge playground to work with, allowing for a richer, more diverse storyline that could span different terrains and social contexts. The street culture of San Andreas is unmatched in the GTA universe. It's not about mobsters in suits or drug lords in mansions. It's about real street-level drama. The gang warfare, the turf battles, the everyday struggle of people just trying to survive and come up in a harsh environment. That's the heart and soul of San Andreas. A game focusing on the rise of the ballas would tap directly into this, giving players the street shootouts, the tense confrontations, and the grassroots criminal activities that fans crave. Character dynamics in San Andreas are incredibly rich and complex. The relationships between gangs, between family members, between criminals and cops, it's all so intricate and believable. By focusing on the ballas, we'd get to see these dynamics from a completely new angle. Imagine the tension of betraying old Grove Street friends, the moral quandaries of dealing drugs in your own community, the brutal realities of climbing the ranks in a street gang. It's compelling stuff that goes beyond simple good guy versus bad guy narratives, and San Andreas has a cultural significance that resonates with a lot of players. Its portrayal of 90s gang culture, inspired by real events and places, struck a chord with many. The gameplay potential is huge, too. Street-level combat, detailed territory control mechanics, maybe even some RPG elements, where your actions and choices directly impact your standing in the gang and the respect you command on the streets. And let's not forget the music. San Andreas had arguably the best soundtrack of any GTA game. A prequel set in the late 80s, early 90s would tap into a goldmine of iconic hip-hop, rock, and pop that would perfectly set the tone for the rise of gang culture. While VCS and LCS were great games in their own right, they were ultimately retreading familiar ground. A ballas-focused San Andreas stories would be breaking new territory, both in terms of narrative and gameplay. It would challenge players' perceptions, offer new insights into beloved characters and events, and provide a grittier, more street-level experience that's true to the spirit of San Andreas. In the end, what makes GTA great isn't just the big explosions or the high-stakes heists. It's the immersive world, the complex characters, and the street-level drama. A San Andreas Stories game, especially from the ballas perspective, would deliver all of that in spades. It's not about bosses and mansions, it's about the streets, the struggles, the rise from nothing to something. That's the story players want to experience, and that's why this hypothetical game would have been a massive hit, potentially even overshadowing its predecessors. You know, when you think about it, Rockstar's got a real knack for cooking up prequels. They've been serving these backstory feasts for years, and somehow, they always manage to keep things fresh and tasty. Take Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. They took a beloved game and wound the clock back, giving us this massive, rich world that perfectly set the stage for the first game. But it wasn't just a history lesson. It was its own epic tale that could stand alone. Even Bully, Scholarship Edition, while not strictly a prequel, showed how Rockstar can revisit and expand on their worlds in meaningful ways. What's cool about Rockstar's approach is how they use prequels to deepen the lore without messing up the original stories. They find these pockets of untold tales and just run with them. They're like master chefs who know exactly which ingredients to add to make the whole meal better. So yeah, if Rockstar ever did decide to drop a San Andreas Stories, you can bet they'd bring that same magic. They'd probably find some angle we never even thought of. Some story that was hiding in plain sight all along. It's like they've got this time machine, you know? But instead of just showing us the past, they let us play in it, mess around with it. They've turned prequel making into an art form, and that's pretty dope when you think about it. Comment down your own ideas for this never-happened game. Subscribe to the channel if you liked my idea. Thanks for watching.